I really wanted to make my own schedule. I really wanted to play my own music in my own studio. I really wanted to work with friends of mine who were starting their own businesses at that time. So, I was young and naive and excited and in New York City, and really felt like I wanted to be a part of the fabric of what was going on in New York.
That's Roanne Adams. I'm Cara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Welcome to the Powerful Ladies Podcast.
Thank you, Cara. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to get to know you today. This is going to be great. Let's jump right in and tell everyone your name, where you are in the world, and the things that you're up to.
Well, my name is Roanne Adams. I am currently living in Los Angeles. My business, RoAndCo Studio, is based in New York. So I'm sort of back and forth between Los Angeles and New York.
I really appreciate people who understand the bi-coastal life. I'm originally an East Coaster. I've been living in California for 12 years now, and I need to get back. Especially in the fall, winter time, I'm like, I just need a little taste, and then I can come back to 75 and sunny most days, not today.
4 days. That's all you need. Just like it's like a spark of energy. And then, I don't know, us LA people, we're a little bit soft these days. So, after 4 days of New York, you're kind of ready to get back home to nature, to sun.
Yeah. How long have you been? I know, right?
So my family moved 7 years ago. It was a lifestyle choice. It was not a business choice. Running my business in New York at that point for almost, I want to say a little over a decade. Mm-hmm. And, just felt like it was time. Had been living in New York for almost 2 decades. I had a baby in New York and was running a business and sort of burning it at both ends, and really felt like I need trees. I need grass. I need birds. I need fruiting trees. So, decided that LA was the place for us. I couldn't imagine moving out to the suburbs of New York at that point. It hadn't, COVID hadn't hit. So it wasn't as if all of my Brooklyn friends had moved out to upstate New York or the Hamptons quite yet. So moving to LA was an excellent choice for us. It worked out really well, and it's been a wonderful place to raise our kids and quote unquote work remotely. It's got a lot of benefits, this weather.
It definitely does. It's really, I was talking to another podcast guest recently about how it's so important to integrate vacation habits into everyday life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you can, it completely transforms how any of it feels, so that you just feel your blood pressure coming down, you feel your soul going up. You're like, okay, this is the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think that LA has so much to offer that it's not as if you can't get bored here. There's so many things going on, constantly going to see shows, and there's so much art here and music. And I'm really enjoying it for this stage of life. Yeah. We'll see what next brings, but for this stage of life, it's been incredible.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born and raised in Connecticut. And then the formative years, 11 to 15, I lived in Paris. Nice. And then I moved back to Connecticut for a few years, and then straight to New York City as fast as I could possibly get there.
Mm-hmm. I understand. Yeah. No, I consider Boston home. That's why I was asking. Mm-hmm.
East Coast.
Yeah. And I think I grew up between we moved a lot, but Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and there's just, it is a DNA imprint that's different. Mm-hmm. And then between Boston and California, I was in Germany for a couple of years. So you can feel the imprints that are left. And
I think getting outside of getting outside of this country and being able to experience another culture and being able to look back at the United States from afar is invaluable. we're actually moving our family just for a short period of time, from January to June, to Mexico.
Amazing.
For a project that we're working on. So it's going to be interesting for my two kids to, leave this culture behind and see how it feels to be there, even if it's just for 6 months. I think that, they'll immerse themselves in the language and culture, and hopefully they'll have a new perspective on, in some ways, how incredible the United States of America is, how convenient it is, how much has been provided for us here, but also to have a perspective of, well, what do you think is better, or what do you think is worse? What do you think is valuable or invaluable? I think that that's what I gained from living in Paris.
Mm-hmm. There's so many. I think this is what I love about like the travel side of TikTok and Instagram. All the people comparing, families living in Copenhagen, one of my favorite cities, and there are like the pros and cons make sense, but it should be inspiring us for, again, what do we want to do? How do we want to make a difference wherever we are, so it can be better? I find it fascinating that every challenge we're facing, we have an answer to. It's just who's going to do it.
It's just who's going to do it.
Yeah.
How can we get everybody on board?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When did making an impact become so important to you?
It's a great question. I about a decade ago, my daughter was 1 year old. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And, that flipped my whole world on its head. And I think I went from being, quite privileged and selfish in some ways to just realizing, wow, there's a lot of people suffering out there, and there's a lot that we can do to help and impact, whether it was environmental impact, health, social responsibility. It all of a sudden became very top of mind for me. And it was interesting that I had to go through that moment of suffering and challenge with my own child and my own health too. It really affected my own health, that I had a baby who's nonverbal, but a chronic disease, that I was caretaking for them, 24/7 essentially. And with my husband, of course, and running a business simultaneously. I burnt out before anyone was even talking about what burnout is. I didn't see the signs. I didn't take care of myself. And as a result, I was a bit of a mess. And thankfully, I had a lot of friends who kind of came to the rescue and said, okay, you need to start taking care of yourself, essentially. Like you need to meditate, eat well, see this, amazing doctor, get yourself back, essentially. And I think that once I got myself back, I was like twofold more, for lack of a better word, powerful, centered, grounded, balanced. I had my energy back. I had my spirit back. And with that came this newfound energy to sort of help others and want to, be better, not want to settle for status quo, not want to settle for, in the agency industry, for example, we get a lot of inbound organic business leads, and we sort of typically would take whatever came our way, whether it was, fashion or beauty or lifestyle brands, hospitality. And then something started to shift in me where I started to think, are these brands good for the world? Is this good for people? Are we being fed a lot of marketing and advertising for products that we don't need, or services we don't need? And so, with that sort of upswell of questioning came, well, how can we start working with businesses and brands that are actually environmentally responsible or socially responsible? And how can we inspire those people to go beyond what they've done before? And that's been a bumpy road. I mean, to be honest, it has not been easy, especially when, you're running a small business and you have to make a certain amount of money to cover everyone's payroll and benefits. And, the there's clients that come along that, at first glance don't appear to be environmentally or socially responsible, but, you have to make that decision tree and decide, is this a client I want to take on and I want to educate and I want to bring into the fold and give them the opportunity to shift? Or is it one that feels like, it's going to be falling on deaf ears and I might as well hold off on that client and move on to the next, even if that one that is doing incredible, responsible things has less of a budget. So it's been an up and down, it's been a back and forth. It's been all the things over the past decade. But I think right now we're in a really, really, I would say pivotal moment where more and more brands are realizing they can't just sell products. They can't just, do it for growth or for money's sake. They have to have strong core values, and those values have to be reflected in an authentic way. So that's really what we enjoy, working with brands like that, and appreciate that a lot of them are already doing it. We don't have to sort of educate or nudge them.
It's really interesting seeing the evolution. I worked for footwear and apparel companies for 20 years before doing what I'm doing now. Yes. And it's I think in the fashion space in general, it's really fun to make new products. And we also know that we don't need more.
Right.
And that's why I think it's so interesting to work with and just connect with different companies who are trying to reconcile those two things. Like, if we're going to make more, how can we make it impactful or worth it, or have more of a circular economy than it would have had previously? And I mean, I remember working on sustainable, biodegradable, you name it, type of products 20 years ago. And we had the technology, we could do it, but customers didn't want to pay for it.
Right.
And it was so interesting to see the shift of, we're not going to do it till they'll pay for it, to being like, no, we just have to do it. Like, we have to choose it.
Yes. That is what leadership is deciding, no, it's actually up to us. We actually now have to make the decision. We can't just wait for someone else. And I think it goes both ways too, in the sense that, like, a lot of us have spent a lot of time waiting for big brands and businesses to do it, or waiting for, lawmakers and policymakers and government officials to do it. And then when, you get to the point where we're at right now and realize, they're not going to do it until we put pressure on them. That's where you start to realize, I actually have to step into the ring and lead as well. And I actually have to voice my opinions about these things, because if not, them, who is? And not that I'm any expert in, the field of environmentalism, but I know enough that I know it's important to everyone's job now. Unless you truly are a climate denier, it is important to everyone's job to bring it up and to, put a little bit of pressure into the world so that people start to shift their ways of being.
Well, and the more people who are bringing it up and asking the questions, suddenly there's a echo effect of like, okay, everyone's talking about this. Like, we have to do something now.
Yeah.
There are plenty of days when I wake up and I'm mad at past me for creating a company called Powerful Ladies, because I'm like, I just don't want to be powerful today. But, and like, obviously you're allowed to have the self-care and you're allowed to have a day off. But I think more and more women-owned business owners, like those of us who are choosing to lead, it can be really exhausting when we don't realize that there are other people doing it too.
Yeah, but I also think that there's power and vulnerability in the fact that you can say out loud, some days I don't feel like being powerful, or some days I don't feel powerful. Is powerful in and of itself. I think that hiding that feeling is the thing that renders you powerless. Or, I've been in moments in my career where I have felt less powerful and thus given away my power to others. I've, allowed decisions to be made by employees, or, someone else's opinion reign over mine. And I think that those are those moments where you have to actually go back inward and do a little like self-inquiry work to find your power source again. And once you've found it, you'll know it.
Well, you've created a successful company that's worked with some of the biggest brands. and really helped transform them. There were so many phrases that were being used to describe what you do. And I was like, wow, like we do different things, but I really feel like our commitment is in a similar place of there's incredible people doing great things out there. And we're not telling those stories. I hate it when you know that a brand or a person or a product is amazing and either no one else does, or we're not telling like the juicy story about it.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to create the company on your own? And we'll just start there. What made you create the company?
I think it was a combination of things. When I was attending Parsons as a design student, I had an internship at a small design studio that was led by someone named Stella Bugby, as well as two other men. And Stella was probably about 4 or 5 years older than me, so I saw that she was able to have a small studio, and I love the idea of an independent practice. Mm-hmm. And I worked for Wolf Olins for a few years, which is a bigger branding agency. It's global, and got to work on incredible, massive brands like American Express and PricewaterhouseCoopers and Product Red. And I realized at a certain point, there's just certain things like I really wanted to make my own schedule. I really wanted to play my own music in my own studio. I really wanted to work with a lot of the friends of mine who were starting their own businesses at that time. So, I was young and naive and excited and in New York City, and really felt like I wanted to be a part of the fabric of what was going on in New York. And working for a big global branding agency, you're working with brands in Europe or in Asia. And it didn't feel like I could, leave my day job and then go talk about what I was working on and have people light up and get excited. They would light up and get excited when I talked to them about the freelance work I was taking on the weekends or nights. Mm-hmm. So I think that was, a big part of it was just wanting freedom and wanting to be a part of what was going on in New York City at that moment. And, again, I was 25. I had nothing to lose. I had no big responsibilities. Yeah. I was living with my now husband, then boyfriend, who was just like, quit your job. Come on, do it. Like, we'll be fine. And he was right.
Those are the best types of partners to have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's always been my cheerleader and, massive, massive support system. So, having owned my business for 18 years now, as a sole owner, I'm always reminded, oh yeah, I've owned this business for 18 years by myself, but I've always had a partner. I've always had my husband in the background helping whenever, shit hits the fan, or I'm in a crisis moment, or we're having to go through a major transition. He's always been there to support.
Well, that's a really big deal. Like 18 years for a business is a long time.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. Like, especially in the creative space, like there's so much pressure to be like evolving and staying on trends. And is like, there's all the spaces that you touch, new and interesting and often younger, will show up as like where people are chasing. But clearly you have a magic that keeps bringing people back to you and your team. How would you describe that magic, that either how you see the world or see the brands? Like, what is that magic wand that you have?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm not sure if I have a magic wand. I think I have strong work ethic. I think always willing to evolve and change. The second that things are challenging, I start to innovate and shift. I think in terms of branding, yes, I've honed a formula or a skill at branding, just from the sheer amount of time that I've been doing it for. So I think, in a big way, it's also about just really listening, deeply listening to the client or the customer, and truly understanding like what they're looking for, and then deeply listening to what's going on in the world and what customers are looking for and need. Um, so yeah, I don't know about the magic wand, but I do have an incredible team. And I would say if there was any magic wand that I have, it's the designers, the art directors, the creative director, the strategists that I have in my team or in my network that they all work so beautifully together. And after 18 years, what you have is, a group of incredible people that you can call on that trust you and trust the business and will hop onto a project if needed. Or, I even have employees who have, left and come back and, are full-time again or freelance. So, that's really the magic is that it's the teamwork makes the dream work at the end of the day.
I think it's really interesting that people think you can't have a dream team. And I'm such an advocate for yes, you can. Are you not demanding what you want? Are you not clear on what you want? Where are we settling? Because having the right people around you, it ends up feeling like a really fun project versus work.
Right. Yeah.
Being in a creative space, founders of similar companies often say oh, I can't delegate this or that or the vision. How have you learned to either brief your team or delegate and share your vision so that you're not the only one who has to be doing all the work?
That's a great question. I think it just comes really naturally to me. I really do value delegating. I would say that I can do a lot myself. I can do the doing in a lot of ways, but I also, once I find people that I trust, I love letting them be autonomous, letting them, run with things and just sort of report into me. So I'm not sure if that truly answers the question, but I think my employees would probably be better suited to answer that question. But I think that, I've noticed a lot of managers that I've hired over the years struggle with either delegating, they don't know how to ask, or struggle with delegating too much sometimes and not being clear on what they're going to be doing versus what they expect a team member to do. And so I do try to be clear. I'm a pretty direct person, but of course there's lost in translation. You know, the team is ever evolving. There's always going to be something that falls through the cracks, or too much work on board, or too little work on board, and expectations haven't been communicated. And sometimes I'm in the process of figuring out and aren't ready to explain to people what's going on behind the curtain, or so it's always great to have people who are really good at communicating all around you too, to say, oh, hey, Ro, I know that that's all in your head, but you haven't communicated that to the team yet. You're like, oh yeah, I've been ruminating over it for 3 months. Yeah. They don't know. How did I forget to tell them?
I think that's the most important part of onboarding someone. I'll often, for my process with employees or even contractors, I'm saying, I might forget to say, how are you in the morning? I'll just jump right into the list. I do care. I'm just so oriented and excited about what we're talking about. So please stop me. Remind me to be a human. Remind me to say good morning. And if I sound like a psychopath, ask. That's not how I want my communication to come across. Not in a bad way, but in more the scattered way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to you. I didn't do it right.
We do live in a very urgent world. And it's up to you to decide whether you want to get swept away by the urgency of things or slow down. And I think I tend to, centripetal force, just start going very fast. And then I have to slow myself back down. And I think that's also why having a meditation practice or breathwork practice and yoga practice, for me, it's like the yin to my yang. I absolutely have to have those things in those practices in my life, because I generally like to move quickly, take on a lot, and sometimes overdo it.
For sure. And I think there's also a big difference between when we overdo it because we're so excited. I think
yes, I'm usually generally just so excited.
Yes. Yeah. So like, it's okay to like do a sprint and be working more hours or working on weekends because you want to and you're excited in that moment, but that shouldn't be the normal. So even when we're excited, I have to remember to like pull back out and say, no, we're going to shut the laptop, even if we want to keep going.
Yes.
Because the future us will thank us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What are you most proud of balancing, your relationship and your business and being a mom and everything else that you are? Like, what are you most proud of at this point?
Wow. I mean, I think I'm incredibly proud of myself for running this business for 18 years. And, um, we've gone through some very challenging times with business. And I have gotten to the brink sometimes of wanting to close up shop. I think I'm most proud of pulling through to the other side.
Yeah.
And finding the conviction to keep going. I'm also incredibly proud of being a mother of two and being, a business owner, entrepreneur. It's amazing to look back at my life, to look back at, childhood, for example, and how maybe homework was overwhelming for me, or being on a, swim team was overwhelming for me. And now how much I can sort of exponentially take on, even in the moments of overwhelm, I can now sort of find my center again, and, essentially take on more, allow the universe to hold me. I think that that's something that I'm very proud of. And yeah, I'm really proud of my relationship with my husband. We've been together almost since high school. We met in high school, actually, and we dated through high school and then broke up a few times, transitioning to New York City life. And then, we've solidly been back together for 20 something years. We've been married now for 14. And, he's still my best friend, my partner, my everything. And so I guess I'm very proud of that as well. And having that has been invaluable to my life. It's been, probably the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I love that. It's, one of our methodologies that we work through in my coaching business is the have it all method. And it's controversial. Like some people are like, you can never have it all.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what your take is on having it all and what that means for you.
I think, I think about having enough and what is enough to you. Because having it all sounds like almost overabundance. Sounds like, how can you have it all, really? I think that you have to kind of like recalibrate that and think about like what is enough. And that's where I'm at right now in my life is I have an abundance of love. I have an abundance of, new business leads coming in, and but I'm lacking, or I'm deficient in certain areas of my life. Would I like to be spending more time with my kids? Yes. Would I like to be, walking on the beach every day at the end of the day? Yes. I'm deficient in some of those areas, but I have enough of everything that I need right now. Even when my bank account fluctuates and I'm like, where'd all the money go? I'm like, but I have enough. And I can find ways to make more back again. So, I like thinking about it that way, I guess. Is not having it all, but having enough.
No, it's the enough part is like, so it was one of the core parts of it because we're not trained to ask what is enough. We're usually, especially looking at the usually male dominated entrepreneurial space, it's always like grow, grow, grow more.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, why?
And at the expense of what?
Yes. Yeah. And I have so many clients, especially female business owners, who are like, okay, we're going to double business again next year. And I'm like, okay, hold on. We absolutely can. Why do you want to? And do you actually want to when we look at what that's going to take? Because there's lots of 101 ways we can double your business, but do you really want to? And which one is actually going to be in alignment with you? Because it's so easy to build a business that is successful that you hate.
Yes. And that's what I preach is, I came to a point at that 10-year mark where I was burnt out, where I felt like I had built a business that I hated and I wanted to get out. And we haven't talked about it yet, but I've been leading retreats for women founders. Mm-hmm. And I do that because I feel that time in my life where I found the way to love my business again, to love my life again, to love myself again is, invaluable to anyone at any stage in their life or career. And, thanks to a lot of different modalities, a lot of different teachers and attending the Hoffman process, there's so many learnings that I took and put into a workshop curriculum that I call State of Feeling. It's, really built for women business owners, and it will potentially expand to more people beyond that. But that, aligning your purpose or your passions or your potential with your business is really going to put you into that flow state. The second that you feel like I have to grow this business twofold every year, and if you're resisting it, or if you feel resistance in you, then you are going to build something that you end up hating. So again, like I've never wanted to grow my business in a big way. And maybe that's why I've been able to sustain it for 18 years. I think if it got, the second that it got a little too big for me is when I started to feel like, I'm a creative director. I'm an artist. I'm someone who grew up making design and creating things. I don't want to be overwhelmed every day by how many employees, how many clients, how much, we have to make every year. Of course, I want to make enough money that we sustain and we feel comfortable, but I don't want to be in a place where I have a fire under my ass every day to double our revenue.
Well, and I bet the irony is that when you chose your alignment, I bet your business grew with at an easier pace than it had up to that point.
Absolutely.
I was reading an excerpt from a book right now, and the question was, will this choice expand your soul? And I was like, that is such a juicy question, because we're going through so many new things that we're building the strategies for 25 right now in my own businesses. And I had a call with my coach the other day, and I was having the most human of human days, like full meltdown day. And the day that we grade ourselves so hardly for. And she's like, okay, well, what if you don't do all those things in the next 2 weeks? What if you just do what the essentials and relax for the rest of October? She's like, what would you, if you were your own client, what would you coach yourself on? And I'm like, push it all off to November. She's like, okay, maybe you should listen to yourself.
Incredible.
And that's why we all need coaches, but it's also, it's so easy to get stuck in the productivity space and the producing space and stop to feel. I love that word is in the name, because I spend so much of my time now coming back to my feelings. It's like, how does this make me feel? And I want to preface this because this came up on a client call the other day. There are feelings that we should ignore because they are trying to protect us, and it's a small game feeling. Yes. But there's feeling in your body is more of a knowing than I feel like snoozing until 10 today. They're different levels. So when you're working with these women and helping them tap into that, what are you seeing from a transformation perspective?
Oh, it's incredible. And again, I learned this through taking coaching courses, and you would know, at the beginning of the week, we're sort of airing out our baggage. We're, writing down and talking about all the things that are challenging us. We're essentially unearthing bad patterns or bad storytelling inside of our heads when I say that. And then in the middle of the week, I think once all of that has gotten out, which, for some people means they cry for hours. And for some other people, it just means they feel really tired. And in the middle of the week, they just start to blossom and come to life again. And they stop ruminating or worrying. That worry pattern starts to really dissipate, and you see them start coming back into their essence. And by the end of the week, they're like bouncing off the walls, and they're hugging each other, and they're open, their eyes are clear. It's just incredible to watch that arc happen. For people who are a little bit more reserved, they come out of their shell. For people who are, maybe we're very unreserved and extroverted, they're actually quieting down and listening more. And it's just it's like, to be able to witness that is probably one of the greatest gifts that I've been able to, have in my life and my career, to be able to see the shift in people. And unfortunately, we're not taught that, that we can all achieve that the second, you start to get stressed and burnt out, there is solutions. It's not just a pill or, Netflix and chill. You can go through that process. Of course, I know this is speaking from a place of privilege where, I can afford to go to a retreat, or I can afford to go, have a coach. But, to be able to do it on your own without the pill or without the, years and years of suffering, to be able to pull yourself out is one of the most empowering things that you can do. And then staying out, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, because there's that integration back into real life. There's the, you get smacked in the face the second you get home, maybe literally, maybe metaphorically, you have to go back to your work and all the things, all the challenges that you have. But if you can change your perspective on those challenges and realizing that sometimes it's our internal voice and our emotions that are actually creating the challenges. It's not everybody else. It's not the job. It's not the people. It's maybe a big part of it is actually you. That's where the major transformation happens.
Mm-hmm. There's the saying that you will always fall back to your strongest step. Mm. And so putting in, it's work, it's a practice, right? To be building up the steps that get you out of, whether it's a victim mentality or just being in the story, whatever whirlpool you find yourself in again and again, it's hard work to build up those steps to get out.
Yeah.
But it's so refreshing when you're like, oh, well, I don't go that many steps down anymore.
Yes.
Now my one down is instead of a week, it's a 1 day meltdown, or it's a 5-minute meltdown instead of that's I think the Jedi skills. You start shrinking the window of impact, because it ends up being a distraction to everything we actually care about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in the world that we live in right now, we are bombarded by so much fear and so much doom and gloom. And,
yes.
And we're required to be on our devices, for these lengthy amount of times, hours and hours a day. So of course we're in an uphill battle. So I know, sounds like I'm preaching, but it's to even be able to survive a lot of what we're going through collectively, personally, we have to do the work or put in the time to rejuvenate ourselves, heal ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and so many of the forces that we collectively don't want to be determining things for us, or the decision makers anymore, they're hoping we're distracted. They're hoping we're burnt out.
Yes, they're hoping we're disempowered.
Yeah.
They're hoping we don't have the agency to, I don't know, be an activist or raise the big questions of today, or, speak out. But once you find your power source, you absolutely feel empowered to do those things.
Yeah. And I do think some people get so overwhelmed about the impacts and the differences they want to be making at a neighborhood level to global level. But there's that tipping point. To me, the biggest hurdle, just like a business, right? It's starting to do it. And once you're there, once you do that first summit, of course there's more, but the magnitude is shrunk in what, because you have some momentum, you've done it. The scariest part, because it's not just starting. Starting is the hardest part, but it's not just the start. It's through that first phase.
Mm-hmm. And then I think it's also making sure that the impact that you want to have on the world aligns with your passions and your purpose, for lack of a better word. Like, just make sure that you feel passionate about it. Don't do it out of guilt.
Yes. Amen. Don't do anything out of guilt. How do we just have that campaign? That PR campaign needs to go out. Like, just because we should doesn't mean we could, like, or could doesn't mean we should. Like,
yeah. And on that subject, so the next big project that my husband and I are working on is we're going to be building a regenerative hotel in Todos Santos, Mexico. And that's why we're moving down to Mexico for 6 months to immerse ourselves in the community and, truly kick this project off. And, 10 years ago, did I know anything about regenerative agriculture or care about agriculture, period? No. But I, I've all of a sudden found it to be fascinating and found that, regenerative business practices, they're actually ancient practices that we can bring back and we can bring into not only agriculture, but into our own business practices. I find it fascinating. And, again, I'm not starting this hotel project out of guilt with a regenerative lens. I'm starting it because I'm really passionate about that now. Yeah. And it really aligns with my values. And I see it as, the next amazing step in my career. And I hope that I hope that works out because I truly believe in it.
It sounds like it's going to be so beautiful as well. Like, just that's the best part. Like, it can be good and beautiful at the same time.
Yes. I think that's the goal is, I think I've also come to realize that what I love to do is bring beauty and meaning and responsibility into the world, not just beauty, which is probably what I was after for the first 10 years of my career, was creating beautiful things, creating great looking brands, creating cool stuff. And then, you sort of like that second mountain career comes along, or second mountain thinking comes along. And it's like, oh, I actually want to imbue it with responsibility and meaningful moments and, truly give back in some way.
Yeah.
That's what brings me joy and pride these days.
Well, I think we found your magic wand in that too.
Why, thank you.
We ask everyone on the podcast, what does a powerful lady mean to them? And do the words powerful and ladies mean something different when they're not next to each other?
I love that question because I think that we, like, historically, I've always thought the word ladies can almost feel, no, I wouldn't want to say weak, but there's that feeling of, oh, they're ladies. They're just having fun. They're going to play tennis. They're going for ladies' cocktails. But I love the word powerful in front of it. I love the juxtaposition. I think, to me, a powerful lady is someone who is both empathetic and resilient and exudes confidence, but also is willing to be vulnerable, willing to open up and tell you how they're really feeling. I really appreciate powerful ladies that are authentic. I don't appreciate inauthentic, powerful ladies, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
And I think that it, maybe it takes one to know one to see through some of the guys or, the masks that people put on to act powerful or to act like they're in control. And I would much prefer for, that confidence or that empowerment to come from within and, to come out in an authentic way, not in a way of, oh, I'm living up to a powerful lady thing. So I'm wearing 3-inch heels and I'm, maybe that is your thing, but in a lot of ways you can be a powerful lady and you can actually be an introvert, or you can be you don't have to dress in a certain way or look at a certain way. So I appreciate that too.
When you can feel it at a pure energy level, you can feel when someone's inauthentic. And going back to trusting what we feel and intuitively kind of can hone in on. I'm also like, ugh, like it makes me want to push away from people who are in that space. It doesn't matter what gender they are, but
Yeah.
you're just like, please go do the work. I know that there
Go do
is
the
a
work.
magical star in there. Please go do the work and come back
Yeah.
because we're protecting this space so hard.
Yeah. I think self-awareness is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's interesting. Once upon a time, I was very inspired by women entrepreneurs. Like that was like, you know, who I was looking to for, you know, the powerful ladies,
Yeah.
looking at the girl bosses of the world, you know, working with them. And and then I think as I went through my spiritual journey, I started to see all these other powerful women, ladies coming to, you know, the surface. And, you know, sometimes the powerful lady is like barefoot with a goddess dress on now. And I never would have expected that that would be the person that would be most inspirational to me. But, you know, there's a shift inside of me now that I'm much more self-aware. You can see the power in others. You know, we went 2 nights ago to see PJ Harvey play live. And, you know, she's always been one of my favorite musicians. She's just incredible. But the power of her voice and her presence on that stage, I was choked up. I was like literally on the verge of tears with every song because she is innately powerful. There's something that that woman, you know, has cultivated over the years, or maybe she was just born with, but because she's so herself. And she writes music that's so her. You know, I don't even know most of the time what she's singing about, but it feels like she's singing about her childhood. She's singing about her, you know, experiences through life. And she is certainly not trying to be anyone else. She is not, you know, she's not modeling after any other female musician that came before her time. She's just uniquely herself. And that was so powerful to witness.
Yeah. And, you know, there's been so many questions and pushbacks about the name Powerful Ladies and who qualifies, and people saying they're not powerful when I invite them. And that's like a whole other thing. But there's this, for me, part of the impetus for doing this was like showing the power almost like through the stages, right? Like we had a woman on a couple months ago who, when we interviewed her, she hadn't even graduated college yet. And it was like, okay, well, how can this person fit into this list that we're curating? And I was like, but look at what she's doing. Look at what she's saying. Look at what she's standing up for. Like, she has the cojones of people who are 90 years old and don't have any filter anymore. And she's 21.
Yeah.
Like, we need to show that. Like, it's not an age factor. It's not a achievement factor. And I really do love being alive in a moment when we're seeing so much redefining of what power is and what success is and what the male and female energies and roles and all the things are, because I think about women in history who would have done anything to have had some of the opportunities right now, and to think about what they did achieve and do and be like, wow, like we have so much possibility right now if we choose to be brave and, to your point, like step into that totally authentic space. And we don't have to know what authentic, like our authentic today does not have to be the same as 5 years from now.
Right.
That I think can also be a scary thing of like re-identifying ourselves.
Yes. Going through the shift in identity is a big thing. I'm actually hosting a Women's Day workshop next weekend around just changes in general, processing change, but also identity shifts. And what are all these identities that we have as layers, you know, mother, daughter, sister, boss, entrepreneur, creative director. But, you know, when you peel back those layers, who are you at the core?
I love that.
That's the big question. And I don't think people ponder it very often. Like, who am I at the core without the label?
One of my rackets about the coaching space and the self-help space is that sometimes all you need to do is ask the right question, but you need someone who can ask it and hold the space for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started going to therapy for the first time ever. And I checked out a couple different people. I'm like, no, because I want someone who has a lot of modalities. For like,
Yes.
talk therapy to me is not, I'm like, I talk to people all the time. I've always had coaches. That's not gonna, I need someone who can like go in there and like rip it open.
Yes.
And I'm like, I want somebody who can ask me the bigger question. And I know that I'm probably a complete pain in the ass because of what I've learned and I've worked on and what I'm not an easy candidate.
Right.
But like who are the people in my life? They're going to ask me great questions. And I have this Post-it on my monitor. Just who are my VIP people that those are the juicy conversations I want to be having with the people in my life and not just with a therapist. And she's amazing. Her name is Barbie. I'm obsessed. We're doing all the cool, weird things, and I love it.
Nice.
But
yeah, I agree with that. Having someone who you can speak with, and also if you have a therapist, I have spent some time with therapists, but I do prefer, and this is maybe just the life stage that I'm at, I do prefer having a coach.
Yeah.
And I do prefer going to group ceremonies, and I facilitate group ceremonies because I think that there's a lot of healing that can be done in group and a lot of, oh, you're going through the same thing I'm going through. Wow. Okay. We should talk.
Yes.
What I love about my coach, Ali Stark, is that she does exactly that. She asks the right questions. And then when she sees the reaction, she'll make a decision of, okay, let's go into a spreadsheet, or you need to go lay down on your bed and I need to walk you through a visualization meditation right now. And you need to get like vulnerable and like cry this one out,
Yeah.
And, I do think that there's obviously, talk therapy has its place, but I think that the somatic experience is so important to touch in on. How is your body holding this pain or this suffering or this pattern? And how are you going to release it from your body, not just from your intellect?
And as women, we're at least, I would say our maybe not younger, but us and older for sure, but we're regularly taught in Western culture to ignore our intuition, to ignore our feelings. Like there was this great video I found of a dad who caught himself when he was worried, stressed out about work, and his daughter asked him, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." Totally unintentionally gaslit her because he was like, "Oh, we just don't need to talk about it."
Yeah.
He went back and said, "You were right. I was worried about something." He's like, "I do not want to be causing this problem where we're shutting down what women and girls feel, think all the time." Because now you and I and like all the cool people we know are having to go back and be like, "Wait, I felt something." That I have a feeling. Oh my gosh!
That rage that I feel. That's valid.
Yeah,
I shouldn't just stuff that down.
Exactly.
I should let that surface so that it then moves out of my system, doesn't stay in.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We also ask everyone on the podcast where you put yourself on the powerful lady scale. If 0 is the average everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady you can imagine, where would you put yourself today and on an average day?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say I would put myself in a 7, 8. For my capacity. I know that I'm not, Oprah. I'm, who are we comparing ourselves to? I hate comparison too. So, I would say today I'm feeling an 8, but on an average day, a 7. And what that means is that I know I have capacity to be more powerful.
Yeah.
But we all do a little dimming of that capacity to make sure that the world, spins and and make sure everybody's taken care of, because we are, nurturing and are taking care of, we are supporting others. You know,
Yeah,
there's power in that too, I guess.
for sure. And I think, Oprah's a great example of, I often am having to tell people, like, hold on, how old are you versus how old was Oprah when she became Oprah?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we tracking?
Mm-hmm.
And she also, I've been doing an exercise with clients lately about seeing and stepping into your villain.
Mm.
Because again, stereotypically for women, not all, but we are so afraid of being the villain side of ourselves
Yeah.
that it prevents us. Like Oprah's not taking any shit. She
Mm-hmm.
has 800 people.
Right.
When's the last time you think Oprah went grocery shopping? She probably can't remember. It was probably because she ran out of water on a trip somewhere and had to run
Yeah.
in. And I bet she
Yeah.
didn't even run in because it would be too distracting if she did.
Right.
So we forget that the women that we are putting at that 10 or beyond number,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how like they have an entire community around them that they are never hesitating to delegate to so they can
Yeah.
stay like in that. It's not even zone of genius at that point. It's like tip of the comet space.
Yeah. It's a totally different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting.
Well, before we get into my last question for
Mm-hmm.
today,
Yes.
for everyone who is obsessed with you and wants to hire any of your companies at this point, where can they find and follow you?
Well, our website for my agency is
Yeah.
RoAndCo.com. You can hire us for brand strategy, branding, web design, campaigns, art direction, you name it. We'll help you with your brand. And for the State of Feeling, that website is actually launching in November. It's going to be stateoffeeling.com. And, if you're a woman founder and you are looking for a community of women founders who are working on themselves, doing the work, we do everything from take women on retreats for 5 days in various places like Mexico or California, to 1-day retreats at my home that I host. And we start the day with yoga. Typically, I facilitate a workshop on whatever theme we're working through.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, we come together in a group ceremony, whether it's a breathwork ceremony or a sound bath, sort of integrate all the learnings from the day.
Yeah, love that. Well,
and then Orifay, the hotel project, that's going to be in 3 years. But if you're interested in regenerative hospitality, if you love Todos Santos or just Mexican culture in general, we are right now looking for investors, and very passionate about this project and starting the build. Hopefully by the end of the 6-month stint that we're going to spend down there in Todos Santos, hopefully we'll be breaking ground.
I have already made a list of people I have to connect you to. So I'm very excited about this.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, come down visit.
The last thing we've been asking everyone is, what's on your manifest list? What do you need? How can we help? This is a big connected community who loves to help and pay it forward and connect as they can. Big or small, what's something that you'd like to ask for?
That's amazing. Well, I did just bring up that we are looking for investors for the regenerative hospitality group, and specifically for this project, the hotel in Todos Santos. We are, looking for incredible people who understand that this is a project that is dear to our hearts, that it's going to be, giving back to the community. It's not just going to be extractive. It's going to be, a sustainable project and a healing space. I'm going to be leading the retreats that I currently lead, at hotels. I'm going to be leading it at that hotel in the future. And, it'll be a healing space for all, and hopefully a healing space for the environment as well. And the other thing that I'm looking for is sponsors for State of Feeling events, to try to keep the costs of the retreats and the costs of the workshops down, bringing in sponsorship dollars from brands would be incredible. You know, it's a group of really powerful women business owners who, you know, can use their dollars in various places. So if there are brands out there that would be interested in sponsoring, we are looking for you.
Love it. Well, it has been such a delight to talk to you today.
It has been a delight.
We probably could have talked for 8 hours at this point.
Yes.
But just thank you for being a yes to Powerful Ladies. Thank you for the work you're doing. It can feel so overwhelming when all of us know the to-do list that is facing us as a collective. And I know that I sleep better at night knowing that women like you are doing everything you can in your corner to, you know, check some things off that list and lighten the global load that we are all carrying. So thank you for the work you're doing, the values that you're kind of living by. And yeah, I hope that we get to connect and collaborate in the future.
Thank you, Kara. This has been really incredible, wonderful conversation. I appreciate you.
All the links to connect with Roanne, RoAndCo, State of Feeling, and her coming soon hotel in Mexico are in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and refer us to your friends. Join us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies, and if you're looking to connect directly with me, visit karaduffy.com or Kara_Duffy on Instagram. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.